Am I the asshole for laughing at mother-in-law when she ate my snacks and got way too high? My wife and I just moved to her hometown and loved living in a big city, but agreed when we got married and started a family, we'd move to a small town. It kind of sucks, but I'm only a 45-minute drive from a theater or good restaurants. So it's not like we're in the middle of the woods. We live in Canada and pot is fully legal here. I like to make butter and cook with it. I make brownies or fudge and my wife and I both partake. Not her so much right now because she's breastfeeding, but anyway, my wife insisted that we give her mom a key for emergencies. I was opposed, but I lost the vote, so we talked about it and I was fine, but only for emergencies. Am I the asshole for laughing at my mother-in-law when she ate my snacks and got way too high? So she was only supposed to come for emergencies, and her mom agreed, so we gave her the key. Well, she followed the rules for about 2 months, and my wife is currently out of town in the city for the weekend visiting friends. I came home last night and found mother-in-law high as a kite in my living room. She decided that since my wife was out of town, I needed a home-cooked meal. One thing led to another and she found some fudge. She was just staring at the TV. I called my wife and laughed my ass off, and she's giving me shit for letting her mom get high. And for laughing at her mom. She's currently resting and my wife's stepdad came to get her. So, am I wrong? Am I the asshole for doing the same thing to my sister-in-law that she does to my son? So I, 32 female, have a brother Dave who's married to Sarah. They don't have children, but I have a son who just turned 4 and a 3-month-old daughter with my husband, 39 male. We live in Belgium most of the time, but we travel to visit my family about once a month in England. At home, we speak English and French to our children, and right now my son is in this phase where he'll sometimes mix up the 2 languages. This has never been a problem to us, and even the staff in the nursery reassured us it's very common. To my sister-in-law, this is a problem, so she'll correct him, but very rudely. Anyway, we're visiting them at the moment, and she's decided instead of correcting him, she'll ignore him. Am I the asshole for doing the same thing to my sister-in-law that she does to my son? I noticed her doing it when we arrived, and I thought it was odd, but assumed maybe she was just stressed. Well, yesterday, I caught my son crying and asked him what was wrong. He said he went up to her with this cup and asked her for something to drink, but that she just ignored him. When I talked to her about it, she explained she wasn't going to reply unless he said it right. She also said I shouldn't be ignoring my son's obvious speech issues. So she did understand what he was asking, but deliberately refused because he said it incorrectly. I was pissed, but my husband took me to calm down, and that night at the dinner table, she asked me to pass her something, but in bad English. She is English, but it was in slang, so I ignored her continuously.
My husband won't stop slut-shaming me because I told him that I used to strip. How do I get him to stop? Disclaimers are not my story time was sent me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 3 years. We actually got separated at the beginning of this year, and it was actually good for the both of us. My husband's always been a little bit, macho is the way I want to put it. He sometimes has a habit of humiliating me in front of his friends. I actually have a job that pays more than his, and this has always been a problem for him because he feels like he should be the breadwinner. So he basically makes jokes about how I'm the guy in the relationship. Our friends and family think it's totally inappropriate, but I think it's kind of funny. But when my friends explained it to me, it is kind of bad, I guess. I own 2 e-commerce businesses that I run from our house, so I'm essentially home all day. Recently, we decided that we wanted to have kids, so we started trying. Unfortunately, my husband comes from a family where they believe the women should be doing all the cooking and the cleaning. So my husband expects for me to do all of those things. And if I don't, he tells me that I'm a bad wife. He also likes to control how I dress, and he doesn't like me drinking. A few weeks ago, we went to our friend's party and I got a little drunk. And on the way home, I decided to make a confession that I used to be a stripper. Part 2 is up. My husband won't stop slut-shaming me because I told him that I used to strip. Disclaimer, it's not my story time, I said it on Instagram. And that's when I confessed that I used to be a stripper. Right then and there, he pulls the car over to the side of the road. Then he actually started interrogating me. He asked me when I started, how long I did it for, where I stripped, what I wore, what the worst thing I had ever done was. He was trying to get all the tea. Immediately, I regretted it. I honestly didn't think that it was going to be a big deal. I mean, we have been married for 3 years now, so I thought that he would be more accepting of it. But that's when I remembered he comes from a family where they think that women shouldn't even have rights. I tried to take it back as a joke, and he said that's not going to work. Proceeded to ask me questions for 2 hours on the side of the road. It was already 3 in the morning. By the end of it, I was so exhausted I started to cry and begged him to take me home. Then he said that he was afraid of even going to bed with me because I might give him an STD. That's when he told me that I probably took money for SEX. I had succeeded into digging myself into the deepest hole ever. I begged him to forget and he wouldn't. That's when he pulled out his phone and started texting his brothers. He told them everything. When we got home, he made me sleep on the couch. Part 3 is up. Husband won't stop slut shaming me because I told him that I used to strip. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's that I made on Instagram. He actually made me sleep on the couch for a full week. And he basically gave me the cold shoulder every single day. He wouldn't even look at me when I talked to him. He would do was ask me for food. Sometimes he'll just come up to me and be like, "What are you doing, slut?" His brothers told him that I was probably doing the dirty with all of these guys at the strip club, and that he shouldn't believe a word that I say. A few nights ago, he sat me down and started interrogating me again. He told me that he wanted me to tell him the truth, and for me to just confess that I had done it with all of my clients at the strip club. He's actually even threatening to go to the strip club where I used to work to ask questions about me. Mind you, the strip club is like 10 hours away from where we live. He even checked my phone and my laptop. He says that he's scared that I might still be in contact with my clients from the strip club, and that he doesn't know what I'm capable of anymore. I've been begging him for forgiveness every single day, but I kinda wanna tell him to F off now. Can't take him calling me names anymore. Luckily, my parents fully support me and want me to move in with them. The only thing that I'm afraid of is that if we do get a divorce, he's gonna try to take all of my money. I have way more money than he does in the bank, and he knows it. I've been totally honest about how much money I earn. Big mistake. What should I do?
Storytime about how my father is obsessed with me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I'm sending me on Instagram. And trigger warning. My mom and dad had me when they were very, very young. My mom was 14 years old when she got pregnant with me. From what my mom told me, my parents were pretty much together throughout the whole pregnancy. Even though they were both in high school, they wanted to move in together and try to raise me like a regular family. But my maternal grandmother had a very big issue with this. She wanted my mom to continue going to high school and possibly even give me up for adoption. But my mom was not having it, so she decided to move out with my dad. Once I was born, unfortunately, my parents just couldn't take care of me. My dad was too busy playing his football and trying to get a scholarship, and my mom just didn't really know how to take care of a child. I mean, she was a child herself. This is when my grandmother stepped in and decided to take me in, which I thank God for every single day of my life. My grandmother raised me as her own daughter, and she has been the most amazing woman in my entire life. My parents split up, and through most of my childhood, I lived with my mom and my grandmother. I didn't see my dad for about 10 years. By the time I saw him again, I was 15 years old. Part 2 is up. Storytime about how my father is obsessed with me. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's that I mean on Instagram. And trigger warning. I finally saw my father again when I was 15 years old. From the moment he saw me, he wanted to hug me and kiss me all the time. At first I thought it was normal because he's my father and he hadn't seen me in over 10 years. After a few weeks of him coming to visit me, I started feeling really strange. This was also around the time where I was getting noticed by boys in school. And you know that feeling you get when you know a guy likes you? Well, that's the feeling I started getting from my own father. Every time he touched me, it was like too touchy. And every kiss was just strange. One of the things that really started to bother me was that he liked going to the beach, and he wanted to make it a thing. He would always say, "Let's go to the beach on the weekend," but I didn't feel comfortable with him. First off, he never invited my mom to come or my grandma, so it was always just me and him. He even took me shopping for bikinis, and this is when my stomach dropped. At the bikini shop, he asked for small bikinis, like the type that show a lot of skin. Told him I wasn't comfortable with that. I wanted a bathing suit. He said no and bought me a thong bikini. He stared at me all day at the beach. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how my father is obsessed with me, part 3. After he bought me the thong bikini and forced me to wear it at the beach, I noticed he was staring at me. I wrapped myself in a towel and told him I wanted to leave. After that, I told my mom and my grandma how I felt about my dad. They thought that I was exaggerating, but I knew that I wasn't. My mom asked him to never ever do anything like that again, and he said he wouldn't. After that, he would always do certain things, like stare at me too much, or always want to hug me and kiss me. And for my own comfort and safety, I put a lot of space between him and I. When I was 18, I finally got my first boyfriend. He became enraged when my mom told him. He told my mom that I was acting like a slut. That's when I cut him out completely from my life. A year later, I got on Instagram, and that's when he started following me there. He started leaving strange comments on all my pictures, and eventually he started offering me money to spend more time with him. I told him I wasn't comfortable with him. That's when he told me that all he wanted to do was watch me take a bath, and that he would pay me thousands if I let him. My grandmother and my mom have completely cut him out of our lives. On the day of my wedding, we hired security to keep him away. And of course, he managed to show up, but security kicked him out. I'm thinking I should get a restraining order. Luckily, my mental health hasn't suffered too much from this. He's obviously an unwell person, but I actually feel really bad for him. And I feel like getting a restraining order is just gonna make things worse. What the heck should I do?
Am I the asshole for not showing up to the birthday party my husband planned for me? So my husband is a jokester and a prankster. He has a habit of pulling pranks, especially on my birthdays. He judges my reactions as overreactions and says I should loosen up and be extra happy because he thinks he's making my birthday extra funny. But it actually really upsets me. He planned for my 26th birthday this past week, which was held at a restaurant. I told him I wouldn't go if there was a prank because it's a public place and I didn't want to be publicly humiliated. He swore on his mom, on the Bible, and promised me and brought 2 witnesses. He even wrote an agreement stating he'd pay money if he pulled a prank. I believed him and said that I go. I even had to cancel with my parents who wanted to celebrate at their house. Well, the day of my birthday, I got a text. Am I the asshole for not showing up to the birthday party that my husband planned for me? On the day of my birthday, I got a text from one of his friend's wives telling me she heard him tell her husband about the prank. I was stunned and she detailed what the plan was gonna be. I felt so upset and anxious, and he already went ahead and got the restaurant to make sure everything was set. I ended up not going, and he called me and texted me asking where I was, saying the party was going to start without me. I turned my phone off and went to my parents' house and had a small party there. I went home at 7 p.m. and found my husband fuming at me. He lashed out asking why I didn't show up to the party after he put money, time, and effort in it. I told him why, and he said that's a lie, and he promised and put so much effort in.
I, 26 female, have been with my fiance Chris, 26 male, for 4 years now. He and his sister, 21, Lilac, are very close. They had a pretty traumatic childhood and always promised each other to be there no matter what. Lilac is a good sister to him, but as a person, truthfully, I can't stand her. She is literally the textbook definition of a bubbly blonde. She is overly charismatic, always giggling, and in general just acts too immature for my taste. She likes to pull pranks every once in a while on my fiance, and he gets her back, but the whole ordeal just seems childish and obnoxious to me. Ever since we got engaged, I knew that I didn't want her in my wedding party because that means I'd have to spend time with her at my bachelorette and other parties. Fast forward to last night, and my fiance asked me when I plan on asking Lilac to be my bridesmaid. I got quiet and truthfully said that I didn't plan on doing so. This upset him because he said he wants his sister to be part of the most important day of his life, and that if I didn't do it, then he was going to have to make her a groomswoman to make sure that she's included. I can't lie, this set me off. I went off about how I want to feel respected by him and be able to enjoy my wedding day. He said he also wants to enjoy his day, which, to be fair, I understand. This is where I may be in the wrong. I told him that I have always disliked his sister and wish that he would just not include her for once on the day that isn't even about her. He got quiet and went into the guest room to be alone. A couple minutes later, I got a text from Lilac saying that she completely respects my decision not to have her in the wedding party, but she's hurt to know what I actually feel about her. I didn't want her to find out at all, and now he's told his whole family about our argument. Half of them are attacking me and half of them are saying that it's my day so I should be able to enjoy it. Honestly, this whole ordeal is just stressful for no reason because Lilac isn't even upset I don't want her in my wedding party, yet the whole family is upset and my fiance has been very short with me all day. Am I in the wrong for accidentally telling my fiance I hate his sister and that she won't be part of my wedding party?